Imagine this. It's 1985. You step outside your house and instead of the buzz of notifications, you hear the rumble of a Camaro engine down the street. No smartphones, no Wi-Fi, yet somehow people seemed happier. Sounds strange, right? Today, we're traveling back to the 1980s, an era of bold fashion, booming economy, unforgettable music, and a kind of freedom most people today have never experienced. But hold on. The 80s weren't just neon lights and cassette tapes. There was also fear, uncertainty, and a world on the edge of change. So buckle up, because by the end of this video, you might start wishing you lived in the 80s, or maybe you'll be glad you didn't. Oh, and spoiler alert, nobody said bro back then. It was all dude. Let's start with the vibe. America in the 1980s was electric. After a decade of inflation and uncertainty in the 70s, the 80s felt like sunrise after a storm. Ronald Reagan was president, MTV was born, and technology was exploding faster than ever before. If you had a VCR at home, you were the coolest person on your block. But behind that glossy exterior, not everything was as perfect as it looked. 1. Pop culture. Explosion television ruled every living room. Families gathered around bulky tube TVs to watch The Cosby Show, Cheers, or Knight Rider. And music? Oh, it was alive. Michael Jackson moonwalked across the world. Madonna shocked every parent in America. And rock bands like Bon Jovi and Queen turned every concert into history. But here's the twist. While everyone was dancing to Thriller, the real revolution was happening in technology. 2. The birth of the digital age. The 1980s marked the dawn of personal computing. Names like Apple, IBM, and Microsoft weren't just companies. They were dream factories. Imagine this, a beige box sitting on your desk with less power than your smartwatch today. And people thought it was magic. Entrepreneurs saw opportunity. Kids learned coding from floppy disks. This was the start of the information economy, the seed of everything that runs our world today. Oh, and yes, if your computer froze, there was no Google it. You just unplugged it and prayed. 3. Everyday American life. For the average American family, life was changing. Fast. Jobs were stable, suburbs were booming, and shopping malls became the new hangout spots. People actually talked to each other, face to face, not through text. But here comes the contrast. The Cold War cast a shadow over it all. Every school had duck and cover drills. Nuclear war wasn't just a movie plot, it was a possibility. The fear was real. Yet, in that fear, Americans built resilience, a kind of unspoken courage that defined the decade. 4. Freedom, youth, and identity. If you were young in the 80s, your car was your identity. A Mustang or Camaro wasn't just transportation, it was status. Road trips, late-night drive-ins, and cassette mixtapes turned every mile into a memory. And here's a question. When was the last time you drove somewhere just to feel alive, not to reach a destination? That's what the 80s were about. Living, not scrolling. But while America cruised into the future, a darker side of the 80s was quietly growing. 5. The shadows of the era, behind the glitz, the 80s also saw rising inequality, the crack epidemic, and the AIDS crisis shaking the nation. It was a reminder that progress always has a price, yet through every hardship, communities came together. Neighbors helped neighbors, churches, charities, and local radio became voices of hope. Because even when the world felt broken, America believed in tomorrow. So what was life really like in the 1980s? America, it was bold, unpredictable, and beautifully imperfect. People dreamed big, failed fast, and tried again. There was no algorithm deciding what you liked. You decided for yourself. The 80s gave birth to Silicon Valley, blockbuster movies, and the global pop culture that still shapes us today. It was the decade that taught America how to dream and how to sell those dreams to the world. And yes, shoulder pads were a terrible idea. Let's never do that again. When you think about it, maybe what we miss most about the 1980s isn't the music, the fashion, or even the freedom. Maybe it's the connection. A time when families ate dinner together, kids played outside till sunset, and viral meant catching a cold, not chasing views. The 80s weren't perfect, but they were real. And maybe that's the lesson. The best days don't live on our screens. They live in the moments we choose to make real again. If this trip down memory lane stirred something inside you, hit that subscribe button and join us as we rediscover the stories that built America. Because here on Old Days USA, the past is never really gone.